Imagine you're an explorer and you've just uncovered the most sought-after treasure of a lifetime. You grasp the glimmering artifact in your hands and you stare at it in wonder. Suddenly, the walls and ground around you begin to rumble and you look around panicking. We all know what comes next. A booby trap awaits you. The iconic scene is pictured here with Indiana Jones running for his life from the enormous boulder, or the infamous Lara Croft Tomb Raider swinging across booby-trapped tombs makes us all wonder what types of traps have existed throughout history. As an avid adventurer and enthusiast of history, I wanted to delve into the history of traps with you. Today, we will travel through ancient Chinese and Egyptian tombs. Then we will discover the traps of Vietnam and World War II, finally making our way to modern society's traps. First, we will travel to ancient China. Many of you are familiar with the terracotta soldiers, which were discovered in 1974. They built a 4-acre museum in 1979 for people to come and visit them. Nearby this discovery is a 100-meter-high hill which holds the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, whom died in 210 BC. According to Guo Zikun, a specialist in the Qin and Han dynasties, we learn that the tomb is composed of 2 parts, the tomb mound on top, and underneath that, the mausoleum palace. In this palace, there were 3 gates, and within the 3rd gate, we find Emperor Qin's coffin and his treasures. Ancient Chinese buried their treasures with them, and tomb robbery was very common. According to ancient Chinese records, Emperor Qin built mechanized crossbows to guard his tomb, and within the tomb, his coffin was surrounded by a lake of mercury like the one pictured here. Scientist Guanggai Zhao and his colleagues discovered high levels of mercury in the soil surrounding the tomb. Buried with the terracotta soldiers, they found crossbows like the one pictured here, and they were very similar to the ones that were described in the ancient Chinese records. Now that we've looked at ancient Chinese tombs, let's take a look at ancient Egypt. Amenhotep III, whom died in 1353 BC, was buried in an elaborate tomb filled with secret passageways and traps. Down a long corridor, we come across a false wall like this one, and guarding that false wall was a 20-foot deep, deadly pit that was camouflaged. According to ancientorigins.net, this trap was maintained by the people living nearby, and they were paid to replace the traps when it was triggered by looters. They also found hematite powder on the floor of other ancient Egyptian tombs, and when breathed in, it would cause a slow and painful death. Moving on from ancient traps, we come to Vietnam during the Vietnam War. The Viet Cong guerrillas and North Vietnamese army were greatly outgunned by the US, so they had to create weapons in the forms of traps. They created punji stakes, which is sharpened bamboo, and they would place them in the pits and camouflage them so that when the unsuspecting soldier came along, they would fall in and get mangled. The Viet Cong guerrillas also coated those punji stakes in animal waste, and that would cause further infection. They also had smaller camouflage pits that would house the dangerous bamboo viper. And when bitten by one of these vipers, you would die within minutes. Moving on to World War II. During World War II, the Nazi army created elaborate bombs hidden in everyday objects, such as this pot filled with mashed potatoes and peas, this can of motor oil, and even chocolate bars. History.com tells us that the British intelligence agency M15 employed a unit to disarm and document these bombs. One member of the unit, Lawrence Fish, drew pictures for future soldiers to learn how to be able to disable those bombs. Now that we've looked at our past history of traps, let's look at the future of traps. In my research of modern traps, I learned that today people still revert back to traps of old, including the punji stake camouflage pits, hidden bombs, and weapons attached to tripwire, which were similar to the ones in the ancient Chinese, to the crossbows in the ancient Chinese records. But I did find one scenario we can all relate to: Amazon package theft. Most of us order packages off the internet, and we worry about those packages being stolen off of our front porch. Former NASA engineer Mark Rober was also faced with the same dilemma, so he devised a glorious revenge. He created this package bomb that, when opened by a thief, would spray glitter all over them. This hilarious bomb would discourage further theft. Today, we visited the traps of ancient tombs. Then we discovered the traps of war, and we ended our journey with a modern trap to ward off package thieves. In conclusion, we've learned that although movies and games have portrayed elaborate traps, we've yet to find one as intricate. Archaeologists continue to explore our past, and we still have much to uncover. Do you think that they will find something adventure-worthy?